even though we are only on number 4, we've actually already started to informally put together some plans on how community is going to work with us, and we're going to work with community in order to address some of these issues. So we're already listening and putting those plans in place, and we have quite a few more. And so we're really excited to be hearing about what you are showing us, what we need to do, what our community and what our nation needs. So that being the case, as Elmer Fudd used to say, on with the show, this is it. Is that what he said? Wasn't that it? Bugs Bunny, that's it. I always kind of get it right, but not quite. Do you notice that? So tonight with Nation Talks, and the biggest lesson we have learned so far is to get a new clicker with how to do this. So community safety. And you know, we're really looking at the impact on our homelands as a priority. It's not to say that the safety and well-being of our membership who live outside of our reserve is not a priority to us. But what we are saying is that for us here and the elected leadership, we are fully responsible for the community safety of those who are on reserve. In the cities, in the municipalities, there's the municipal police forces, there's several service delivery agencies, and there's other places that help. Now, we as a governance team, as well as our staff, can help facilitate some of those safety issues. But as we talk about community safety tonight, we will be concentrating on our home reserve here on Cowessess. So we look at the Mi'kmaq, and of course, like we have stated before, we come from our ancestors. They still live within us. Not only does their blood flow through our veins, but so does their knowledge. And it is up to us to be good stewards of all of this while we are still here. Cowessess First Nation retains the inherent and sovereign right to ensure community safety. This includes our ability to develop our own laws, enforce our own laws, develop our own judicial systems, and empower our own judicial systems to ensure peace and good order. The numbered treaties contain certain rights, obligations, and responsibilities by the Crown to not only support our inherent and sovereign right to ensuring community safety, but also to enhance it. Red coats were to be provided for protection. And one of the discussions that we don't have is on a slide here is that if we looked at pre-contact, we had societies. We had societies where we governed ourselves. And with governing ourselves, we had the warrior society. We had some agonists in order for us to have those community taboos, to have our tribal taboos. And that's how we maintained that peace and order. So peace and order did not come from contact. That is how we governed ourselves traditionally anyway. And now for us now here at Cowessess, it's that blending and that contemporary of where we are right now and where we're going into the future at what law and order, peace and order, justice, and judicial systems utilizing our own laws, our own acts, our bylaws, our procedures, and our policies, and our ability to enforce them. That is what we're looking at for the future and how they work within the mainstream system. So, as I said, as First Nations people, we always had community safety and judicial systems and structures. One of our primary roles in our communities was that of Samagonists, which is our community police officers today. Certain lodges were used to settle community disputes and deal judgments on offending individuals. As Plains people, our pipe is very powerful and sacred. A pipe would be shared to build peace between camps, tribes, and nations. Cowessess today continues with the practice of developing our own judicial system, beginning with Eagle Women's Tribunal, partnerships with local authorities, and our peacekeepers. Where we are today. So as we talked about the counselors responsible for community safety, we have Councillor Terry, Councillor Curtis, and Councillor Ira. And our community safety committee is Kathy Kostinster. We are still looking for the youth to help. Aaron Sparvier, Maury Sparvier, and Gary Sparvier. Okay, let's give them all a clap. The departments that we have that we're moving towards integrated services is justice, health, housing, addictions, education, and Eagle Women's Tribunal. For our Justice Department, we have, and I just want to acknowledge our Director of Justice, Kevin Lara. Everybody give him a wave. And I was just going to say something cheeky, but we'll just continue on. So the services provided are peacekeeping, court navigation and assistance, and emergency response. Currently, and just to let you know, this is another example of what we were talking about the first night, about programs and services. And, 95 to 99% of the funding we receive here is meant for on reserve. Well, if you can believe it or not believe it, our peacekeepers are not a funded area. And so when we look at own source revenue, this is one of the areas that is the most important in order for that peace, to keeping peace and order in our community. But it's not part of what is in our contribution agreement in order to have that. So it is our community and our community members and our governance team from the past, as well as ourselves, that understand how important the peacekeepers are for us, and also are looking at the evolution of what peacekeeping and policing means for us as First Nations people. Currently, there is 10 staff, 4 full-time and 6 casuals. It's 24/7 coverage, which is approximately 8,760 hours per year. Now, the peacekeepers are on actual physical duty for 20 of the 24 hours per day, and 4 hours are on call. So there's somebody that's, 22 hours, 21 hours. And then for the other 3 hours, they are on call if required. So the quick stats for last year are 34,000 calls attended, property checks, domestic emergency response, 220,000 kilometers driven in 2023. I think that Kevin just wanted that included so that he could provide a basis for a new vehicle for them. But that's a lot of driving just on our home reserve and around the area there. 90 plus court client assist cases, which are victim offender mediation, probation, etc. For our health department, our health director and justice director collaborate to keep the Cowessess emergency plan up to date. And for mental health emergencies, individuals may self-refer, or there may be a referral from a family member, teacher, peacekeepers, or others. Now, we didn't add a whole lot to the health area for tonight because we're doing the deep dive on April 22nd. And that's where we will be concentrating more on the services that are provided specifically by health. Addiction services, just for February and March, just to give a snapshot, there were 4 NA meetings, 6 newcomers, 4 Al-Anon meetings that averaged 6 to 10 clients per meeting. No clients went to detox or treatment. And a roundup in Saskatoon, there were 16 clients and 4 staff. The March stats for addictions are that we had 4 NA meetings, 2 newcomers in March, 4 Al-Anon meetings, averaging 6 to 10 clients per meeting. 3 clients went to detox and treatment, and we had 2 birthdays. So let's give them a hand for the birthdays. The housing department. Services provided are pre-inspection budgets, renovations, cost sharing with different departments, address health and safety concerns, planning new build section 35, amending the housing policy, working with labor force development to assist with renovations, and updating lease agreements. Now, this is all important to community safety in regards to people who have homes, overcrowding, what is happening inside the homes in regards to the impact of mental health, addictions, trafficking, unhealthy behavior in the homes, all affects what is happening outside of the home, which in then has impact on community safety and well-being. The education department, the services provided is fire safety in the classroom, effects of addictions, as well as contributing to the community safety plan. Eagle Women's Tribunal. Currently, the Eagle Women Tribunal is undergoing a period of pause. This decision has been made to enable us to delve deeper into refining and fortifying the laws and policies governing the tribunal. Our aim is to enhance its efficiency and jurisdictional scope. So right now, the Eagle Women's Tribunal was created as part of the Mio-Pamatsuen Act, which is part of the child welfare. And it was meant to, I wish I could say adjudicate disputes, but there is not the teeth that is required for a true judicial arm, as well as an enforcement piece. Right now, for both the Eagle Women's Tribunal in its terms of reference, as well as within the Mio-Pamatsuen Act. And we are looking at the Eagle Women's Tribunal and really trying to learn from where we need to go, especially in regards to child welfare. When we look at disputes and it being a dispute resolution mechanism, it requires the ability to have the contemplation, the expertise, the contemplation, the due diligence, as well as the ability that once they make not only a recommendation, but an actual decision, that decision is the decision for the nation and that there is enforcement to it. Right now, the way that the Eagle Women's Tribunal is that it's named in there. We have tribunal members. However, when a person who does not agree with what is going on, if they go and sit with them, all the tribunal is able to do is recommend, and it goes right back to the person who made the decision in the first place. So there is not a true judicial ability or an enforcement ability within that. When we look at sovereignty, when we look at our own acts and laws and what is required, this falls short. This was a very good start, and it is a place for us to continue on. But it's also learning from what we need to do legally from both our indigenous worldview knowledge as well as the Western worldview and their knowledge. Where are we going? So once again, we're talking about community safety governance and mention Councillors Terry, Curtis, and Ira, and our committee members, Kathy, Aaron, Maury, and Gary. And also what, one of the suggestions already that came up, and we are truly looking at implementing this next month as we do our roll-up, is that we have our community, or pardon me, our committees. But committees, by virtue of being committees, don't necessarily move that fast. And so we know there are action items that where we need to, as a community, move quickly on. And that's in every area. And that's in every Nation Talk evening or day that we have. And what we are looking at is most likely right now, this is the thought, is implementing a task force that identifies key areas within each evening that our community members, as well as the committee members and the staff, as well as the counselors, work on, and they are action items with timelines attached to them to address those issues together. So that's what we're looking at that will work within that, is to creating an actual task force in each area that is very, very committed to action and timely action in all of those areas. So, oh, there we go. Future planning and consideration. So the task forces, targeted sectors, community concerns, doing it in a trauma-informed way, trauma-centered way in addressing our community, because we understand that much of even the danger that is in our community comes from places of trauma and pain. And although that cannot overwhelm or take or supersede community safety, in order for us to move forward together, that has to be equally considered, and services and programs need to be provided in order for people to work on themselves, families to work together and to support each other in order to become part of a healthy community. And that's the only way that we're going to get healthier together as a community. And then finally, as we talked about, our laws and bylaws, that we will be looking at exactly how our laws, our bylaws, as well as, I'm just looking here and look at these two ladies, how incredibly hard they're working as they're talking. They're just both, it's a good thing we're not in 1986 grade 10 typing class. We would be like, dook, 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 dook. And then all of a sudden hear a big ding and then start again. So the laws and bylaws is our key to that sovereignty and our key to be able to truly do this. And when we talk about our laws and bylaws, it's not creating them in 5 minutes over a weekend, in 5 days. It's not about creating them with 3 to 5% of our nation's members. It's talking about putting in a system that is mindful, thoughtful, relevant, enforceable, as well as has the community support. And that is what we will be concentrating on as we develop our laws and bylaws. All right. So we're at this place in our, I'm going to look to Councillor Malcolm and to say, is it time for a smoke break before we go into the meetings? Auntie D's like, nope. See, she's just like me. She's like, let's get this done. And before we get into the second, because this is really us moving into that next area. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to put somebody on the spot here, and that's Staff Sergeant Dallin, to make a few comments as our red coat representative that's here in a goodwill, good faith, and is always here to work with us as a community. So thank you, Staff Sergeant.
Thank you. Like I said, I actually was just at a meeting out here last Thursday when I was asked to come tonight, and obviously I was honored to take part in your community safety meeting. I've been in Broadview as a detachment commander there for 2 years now. And before that, I'm born and raised Whitewood, Saskatchewan, so I'm not too far down the road. I kind of know the area, know the, I guess, some of the issues and problems that are surround not only the towns here, but the nations here as well. So I feel like I came to the area with a good base of knowledge, which has helped me. First and foremost, especially with your leadership and your peacekeepers, with the Broadview detachment, we have a great relationship. I always know that when we need help or we need assistance, they're there with Kevin and his peacekeepers, as well as Chief Bowden, and Chief Cadmus before that as well. But I wish I could say it wasn't an uphill battle. There is a lot of safety concerns on the nation, and you guys are not alone by any means. But is there work to be done? Absolutely. We I don't know, we don't have near the stats the peacekeepers do. We don't have 34,000 calls, but we attend as a Broadview detachment around 5,000 calls a year, and they just keep getting higher. Every year we get more and more calls, and not only more and more calls for 911 hangups that are kids playing with a phone, they're more and more serious calls. Our amount of prisoners this year is up significantly again from last year. I think we're at 175 prisoners since January, which is crazy. That's and yeah, I know I wish I wish I would have had something prepared for you guys. This is truly on the spot. We're going to keep working with the community, with I guess the main thing I want to leave here with all the community is that we're here to work with you, every one of you, to make your community safer. Can I say that we're doing everything possible? No, we're doing what we can. We need to work together to have the best result. And yeah, I know there's work to be done, and that's the only thing I can say with absolute certainty. Without getting into a lot of we've been talking about crime reduction initiatives and groups and task force to combat some of the main issues like the alcoholic problems, the drug problems, the trafficking issues. And a lot of it is education too. When it comes to that stuff, a lot of times you as the community and the public don't know what we, the RCMP, need to help us, right? I've heard it, and it's not just on your nation. It's not just on your neighboring nations. It's in every small community. Why aren't the police doing more? Right? To be honest, we need your help. It's where there's 12 of us. There's 12 RCMP that look after the entire area. And of that 12, there's usually 4 working at one time. Unless it's at the day shift and you find me useless in my office, but yeah, there's 4 boots on the ground usually that are racing around to every location, right? If it was 4 RCMP office every day, RCMP officers every day, right in Cowessess, that would be a different story, right? That would be a dream. And then we'd only be 5 minutes away or 10 minutes away, but we might be in Kipling or Grenfell or Whitewood or Broadview. And a lot of times you'll tell us, well, this is happening. John Smith is doing this down the road. It's like, okay, how do you know that? It's like, well, everybody knows that. I know, but that's still hearsay, right? We need to know, did you see this? And if you did, when did you see it? What time, what place? And it's a lot of times people don't want to put themselves out like that, right? Because they don't want their name tied to it either. So you can give complaints anonymously through Crime Stoppers and through even by yourself giving tips anonymously to the police. But anonymous tips are only worth so much. But if we have 100 anonymous tips, then it's worth a lot more. But yeah, I don't know. I without talking about specifics, and I know I'm going to keep working with your chief and counsel and with your justice coordinator, but yeah. And if any of you, the whole public, if any of you guys have questions for myself, I'm very, very easy to talk to. Come and talk to me during the break or phone the detachment, come talk to me. Yeah, you have a question? Oh, sorry.
What's preventing you guys from setting up a command post out here? When I know on Pasqua First Nation, the RCMP are setting up a unit there on that reserve, and another reserve I know of is Sturgeon Lake First Nation has a detachment right on the reserve.
Yeah, so I'll speak with it's Constable Nora Medilla who is at Pasqua. To be honest, it's funding. It's 100% down to it's called basically a community constable project, and it's separately funded from the RCMP. We can explore that with your chief and council. I know that Staff Sergeant Dean Leroy actually had a lot to do with getting that one set up on Pasqua. He is actually in recruiting now, and he'd guarantee he would help us along that way if that's something we want, especially if there was one that maybe the Four Nations wanted to share or something, right? Because it is a lot of work that gets put into that, because that little workspace that she has, it all has to be secure with secure lines into it. So like it has to be a secure area. The computers can't be left out there, and it's not. There's definitely some work, but again, that's something that can be explored, because 100% of her work, Nora Medill, I'm talking about Pasqua again,
Right.
is on the nation. So she's there, and she works with their chief and council on what hours they want her to be out there. But she still relies on the Fort Capel detachment to come and help her and police with her, right? But she's that local boots on the ground. She's there all the time. She's in the school. She basically works hand in hand with chief and council and their justice to.
And the detachment in Sturgeon Lake, it's even though there are police presence there, there's still a high crime rate.
Yep.
On that reserve. They're like gang members galore.
Absolutely. One doesn't just because there's a lot of police presence doesn't mean that the crime rate goes down. You can look no further than a lot of our nations to the north, right? Because they're usually a smaller, more isolated nation where there's usually police right on reserve, living on reserve all the time. And they're like, I worked in both Buffalo River or Dillon and Red Earth on the east side of the province, as well as the Losh. And all those places are very, very busy and very, very high crime rates. But I'll also say they're also very, very well policed. They have, as far as population to police ratio, they're a lot higher than they are in a Cowessess and Broadview detachment area, right? But also, when something bad happens on one of those nations, then we have a quicker response time. So that's one of the good things, right? So, thank you. Sorry. And as far as Sturgeon Lake, the community I don't know that situation specifically. I do have a fairly good understanding of the one on Pasqua, and that is it's not a federally funded position. So like, whereas like we're all federally funded to be out here, and the community constable at Sturgeon isn't federally funded. To be honest, I don't know a lot about that, but like I said, I know like your Dean Leroy actually headed that one up, and he has a lot of information on that. I know he did a lot of good work to get that position set up, and it's very. I hear nothing but good things about how it's working in and how it's working on Pasqua. So, yeah. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Yes.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Auntie, for the prayer. My question to you, I guess, is the evolution or the devolution of RCMP services, simply because when it comes to the reserves and the reserves boundaries and the jurisdictional coverage that RCMP has, and sometimes their selective choice of what they cover and what they don't cover in the communities, especially if they're social issues and social programs such as doing housing evictions and things like that, where really there's no place to go to other than the RCMP to accommodate the landlord when they're doing such actions. And so my question is a funding question, because I don't think putting one constable in a community of 5,000 people is the solution, right? There's more of a preventative solution that can occur in communities as long as their strategies are aligned and everybody knows the plan. But wouldn't you say that it's more beneficial to encourage the nations to have local uh, policing services, or a police service that they join together and provide on reserve local community police services? And I don't want to say police, because that really isn't our traditional way of doing that and regulating our people. So to me, there's got to be a system on reserve that connects to the RCMP, where there's a process that is complementary to each other. And the biggest gap is there's no money on reserve for community safety, like we created from our own source revenues when it comes to our peacekeepers. So and I've heard that RCMP services are being reviewed. And are they devolving? Are they growing? Are they evolving? Or where are they going to go in the future? And let's realize that all of the funding arrangements that are out there, the federal transfer payments that come down the pipe for our areas for community policing, all have our numbers attached to it. So I think there's a gross miscalculation in funding, as well as a major gap in the community safety services, simply because we make do with what we have. And I know that if there were a better backstop to it and more resources, that it could be much more complementary versus adversarial to each other, as you're trying to get to, to reach an objective of, if you're combating drug dealers, or you're trying to evict tenants that are squatting in homes. Thanks.
I'm just trying to think of everything. You had a lot of statements and then some questions. So I obviously, when it comes down to the appropriated funds, I can't comment on that because I have no control over that at all. Do I think that there could be like are we talking a step between the peacekeepers and the RCMP? That's what you're thinking of, like a peacekeeper type thing, not a peacekeeper, like a peace officer type thing on the nation that is the link between the nation and the RCMP? Is that like a special constable? And I know I don't want to comment too much, because I know your nation as well as the other 4 nations have been looking into having your own police force and moving into the future, but I don't know how much talks have been done and what I know that all 4 chiefs have mentioned that to me in their discussions and stuff. I just know that it's a long process and it is a lot of work to get to that point. Do I think that your nation will always have services provided in some degree by the RCMP? 100%. You can look no further than down the road to Fort Capel with File Hills. File Hills has a police force, right? But RCMP are out there every day. There's I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm sure everybody does, because the whole country, RCMP are always fighting staffing shortages all the time. We're no different right now. And File Hills is no different than that. And you can look at any police service in Canada, you struggle finding staff. I'll actually say that some of the smaller police forces like File Hills, they struggle even more because there's no, I've talked with officers that used to be in File Hills and stuff. There's no room for an advancement, or there's no, like RCMP, we eventually get tired of arresting the same people after 5 years. So you transfer to somewhere new, right? And it's a good thing too, because then it keeps your mind fresh and it keeps you from making, you make a lot of good friends, but you make some bad ones too in our line of work, right? So that helps. But then if somebody was, say in File Hills, somebody's in File Hills and you arrest somebody every weekend for a year, you can't transfer anywhere. You can't get away from that, right? And then you develop bad blood, and not only sometimes with that one person, but their whole family, because they're out for whatever reason, right? And so that's one of the obstacles that some of the small First Nations police forces have to deal with is the staffing issue, right? And somebody that's willing to police there every day, and hopefully, like a lot of police forces, it's a huge benefit if you can have people living on the nation. I can say I lived on 3 nations, and such a beneficial, so great living there. I can't imagine having to police out there 24/7 and not living there, but again, I don't think I truly answered your question. But I don't think I really can give you a correct answer on that link. And I know that we're trying to develop crime reduction strategies on that, but it's like I said, we're going to keep trying. Is there a misappropriation on where certain funding and resources are going? Probably. But again, I can't say too much because I don't have control over that.
One more question here. Many years ago, I would say 20-some years ago, we had a police management board between the RCMP and the 4 nations. The police management board had a contract with the RCMP at the time, and there was certain times and hours and practices that the RCMP had to follow to stay within the agreement that we made amongst ourselves with the First Nations and the police. Is there, I believe, like Sturgeon Lake and the ones that have that, we did have RCMP on reserve one time. We had an office at the band office, and the police management board at that time met almost weekly with the RCMP, and they had strategies that was for crime reduction. And they worked very closely with the RCMP, but I do believe that the RCMP have a smaller force now, and that the police management boards are not in existence anymore. But it was up to the leadership at the time to apply to Justice Canada for these police management boards. So I'm wondering if there is still such a thing, or is there a program offered by the RCMP that we could set up police management boards and work more closely on strategizing crime reduction.
There used to be an agreement, it was called a tripartite agreement. And they unfortunately, they used to be on every nation across the province. Some nations didn't sign and some did. It was an agreement placed between that nation and the RCMP. Unfortunately, none of them have been signed for quite a while. And I know that none of them are current on these 4 nations. I don't know more than that. And again, that is the agreement you're talking about, is that tripartite agreement. Right now we have something that we have indigenous policing services. They're out of Prince Albert. And I know they've come to, I don't know if, I'm sure you've met with them, maybe some of the officers out of them. Anyway, they would be able to fill in your leadership more on those types of agreements. That's I present stats and initiatives and stuff to your chief and council, but I also present it to them. So I know that if your leadership is wanting, I can definitely put them in touch with that process. Yep. Yep. Yeah, sorry, she was just
I
saying that
forgot
in that
what I was saying now.
no, I can reiterate what you said. They were saying in that agreement, there was provisions that said the RCMP had to work so many hours and so many patrol hours and in school at like crime school talks. And there was exactly what we had to contribute as part of the agreement on as from the RCMP. So it might say out of a 40-hour work week, that officer has to be here 30 hours of the 40 hours. That's just an example. I don't know if that's exactly what it
I
said.
think
But
it was at one time, it was up to 80% of the time
yeah,
that of the hours was supposed to be spent on the First Nations here.
yeah. So
And I believe
basically,
each First Nation had a separate agreement here.
yeah,
And that we did, they did meet regularly with the leadership and report on what they were doing.
yeah, exactly. And like I said, that agreement would have basically what the RCMP is going to provide and then what the nation will provide back. So the nation would provide, well, we're going to give you a place to put your computer and work here, and there'd be other things on the agreement. But absolutely, that's what it was.
Yeah, and also, do you know if there's any such thing as those kind of programs available through the government anymore? The federal government is, what are you doing, baby?
We can look. I know that currently in Saskatchewan, there are no tripartite agreements signed. The last out of these four nations, the one we currently have an understanding one with is Cowessess, but they're currently not current because they were a contract and they would expire every 3 years or something. So
So you don't know if there's any programming that the federal government announced to provide these agreements, provide any kind of help with the First Nations?
not that I know of right now. Sorry.
There's a couple of comments here I think are interesting to follow up on, and maybe they're for the council.
To answer your question, from my knowledge as well, because I asked some of the same questions, those aren't available right now because the federal government is going in a different way for First Nations policing. So there is movement in there's about 2 or 3 different streams, but they're not looking at resurrecting those tripartite agreements any longer.
Okay, here we go here. This one says from Alec Lura. To help us monitoring, it would be a benefit to have a camera surveillance system for places like the entry points, high traffic areas, subdivisions, main roads. It's a suggestion for the Justice Department, although it may be useful for the other department and purposes. And the other suggestion to have here from Aaron Diggerly is he'd like to see a Southeast or a four nation inter-nation crime prevention and community safety strategy. And he's saying we need to work together. The issues are bigger than one nation. And that sort of goes with one guy kicking off the drug dealers and they just move to town or move to our reserve. Okay.
I can answer the one with the cameras because we actually just discussed this last week. Cameras are great. The only problem with cameras are they are very quickly vandalized. So if you put a camera up on a pole at the four-way stop, it doesn't take long before somebody smashes it or somebody shoots it down and then it's useless, unfortunately. And then on the flip side, you put a camera on somebody's house, you're potentially making them a victim, right? Because then when the police get that camera footage, the main goal is to end up, unfortunately, is to prosecute these wrongdoers and hold them accountable for what they're doing. In order to do that, we have to put them in court. There's a potential that they would see that video and see where the video came from, which also so if it's on the side of a house, it's like that. I know what house that is. In saying that, it is great when we go like in businesses or if you put the camera somewhere where it can't be vandalized. Cameras are always great. They make our job a heck of a lot easier when something really bad happens at a bar or at a business. there's always so many cameras and it is wonderful. Yes. Oh, they're making you run. Get your exercise in.
That's my brother.
Do you want to comment on the other part?
And as for I think this is Alec online. The four chiefs, so Chief Lynn, Chief Evan, Ogamawa Shelley, and myself, we are meeting and we are looking at that Four Nations response. And we're hoping to bring together all of our councils and have the Four Nations councils as well as the chiefs put together that strategy, because it is a little bit like whack-a-mole in regards to addressing some of those going between the different nations.
And just to comment on, because I know the main point of concern was you take out a drug dealer here or you kick the drug dealer off this nation, they just move down to the next nation. It's also an issue with us. We go and I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of the previous drug dealers or drug traffickers that are in custody. Someone else just takes their spot really quick. So it's kind of you're always fighting that battle. It just who you're fighting it against. It's just different names and different people, right? So sorry.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what sort of like participation do you need from the community to like effectively like remove drug dealers or make it like a successful arrest for the drug dealers?
That's a good question. So a big thing that we need is we need to the number one way is we can find them in possession of drugs and in a quantity that would be consistent with a quantity or a packaging and that would be inconsistent with the fact they're drug dealing. There's also another way you can do it is a search warrant of a place that only they have that is their home and find the same stuff. There's a third way, and it is to have someone buy drugs from them. And this is usually done in either an undercover officer or something, or somebody who buys drugs from them and then wants to work for the police and say that they in an agent type capacity. But that has to be set up beforehand. The main one that we usually try to go for is in quotation marks, kind of catch them dirty, right? Catch them driving around, delivering their drugs while they're doing it. Or catch someone going to their house while they're picking up drugs, find drugs on the person who just picked up, and then do a search warrant on the house and get drugs in the house. That's our dream scenario. So we also have a lot of, actually, it feels like we're always fighting that losing battle, right? Because as soon as we arrest one person, somebody takes their place. We have more, we call them confidential informants. They're people that are working with the police, telling us who's selling drugs, where they're selling from, when they're picking up. We have more now than we've ever before. So on the Four Nations combined, we have 14 people right now that are actually telling us, giving us information. And these people are, we have a term like today's source, a source of information is tomorrow's target. Because a lot of these people, and they're, whether it's a good or bad thing, whether we're taking advantage of, well, because we, like I said before, like we need current information. We need reliable information. A lot of these sources that are giving us information, when we ask them like, okay, John Doe has drugs. How do you know that? And they're telling us like, I bought from him 2 hours ago. Perfect. That's about as reliable as you can get. Thanks for telling us that. And we tell them like, make sure you don't do that. Get help. Like we read them the Riot Act too. Like don't do anything illegal. But when you do, we want to like tell us. Unfortunately, that's the way it works.
Thank you. I have another question for like leadership about the community facing, I don't know, safe standards. What are we doing about like the dogs and stuff like that are always like running around like?
That's coming up in one of our questions, actually, where we're going to address that issue.
Okay.
Okay,
Are-
so we are now at the place where, thank you, sir. Everybody gives to Staff Sergeant Allen a round of applause. Thank you very much. Just by him coming here, he is doing his part on fulfilling that treaty obligation. So we thank you very much for that. So it's smoke break time, and well, not for some of us that actually don't smoke, but at 7:45, if we could be back to start. Thank you.
The power on the button, everybody. The 25 people online. How many here? About 20? 20 people? 21? 21 here, 20 online, 40 people today. 25 people online. 7:45 on the button. We had a couple of suggestions here or areas of concern that one of the members brought up, just the third one online here. From Denise, hard drug sellers, addictions, and stray or roaming animals, dogs and cats, I feel are top of our concerns in our community that affect safety. Also, I agree, fast drivers in the sub. And that's it. That's what it is. Fast drivers in the sub.
Okay, so we're back, and before we get into the first question, and actually thank you, Denise, for bringing up those areas of concern. That's actually, you're answering the first question, are what are the top issues our community is facing that we need to address in order to keep us safe? So Denise started us off, but before we get there, I wanted to introduce and to acknowledge our incredibly hardworking staff in all of these areas. So in the back, we have our very newest member who hasn't started her first day, but we're so excited that she's come home. And that's our Chief Strategy Officer, Lucy Pelche. Right across from her, because they come from an awesome family, is Jennifer Pelche, who is our office administrator or our administrator for the Red Eagle Women's Tribunal. And then we have, let's see, who do we have next on here? Kevin Lara, our Director of Justice. And then our Director of Education, Sandy Panay Schindler. And our Director of Health, Kelly Finkus. And last but not least, and I did not forget about you, I promise, because I just went over this with Melissa. Our Director of Housing is Constance Cowessess. So thank you to all of our senior managers that work together and are putting together our operational new structuring model in order to ensure the integration of services for our membership. Next, before we go into the question, which, like I said, community member Denise started us off on, is to hear from our counselors responsible for these areas, as well as our newest community member or committee member. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Maury, but even just to introduce yourself, that would be great. And we'll start off on this side.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dee, for today's prayer, and thank the staff for the great food provided. This area of responsibility, this community safety, is always been a challenge for our First Nation. It seems to be things crop up. We settle some, and things crop up, and more issues come. But I think we have a good group together, and we haven't had a chance to have a committee meeting yet. The timing wasn't. We didn't have enough time to have it done. But I'm glad that for today we have a lot of good directors here. We have a member of the RCMP here as well to help us. and answer all of our questions. And what we're here for this evening is to really identify some of the issues in the community that need addressing and ways that we can address them. So with that, I'll pass it on to Terry.
Yeah, good evening, staff, band members, everyone's here, the elders, the Kokums. I would like to rely on the Kokums a lot, the grandfathers a lot, the elders a lot on our First Nation to give us direction and guidance as where they want us to go with community safety. Right now, my main focus on community safety, or something that's front and foremost, is the drug issue, followed closely behind by the dog issue, surprisingly. Overall, just safety, community safety on our First Nation. But I believe in order to achieve that, as leaders, as your elected leaders, we struggle with which direction we take it. It would make it easier if we had more representation from our community, our elders, our Kokums, our grandfathers to come sit at these tables here and tell us what they want, you know, and then we could go from there with some clout, because we were directed by our membership to go this route. Like we were elected here to sit here. The chief is elected to sit here and go the direction that our community members want. That's what I think. That's where the power and the strength will come from our community to improve the living conditions, the safety of our whole First Nation. This is one issue that includes our whole First Nation. We could talk about recreation, and includes the youth and the ones that are involved in recreation. Talk about farming, agriculture, it includes the farmers and stuff like that. When we talk about community safety, it includes the whole community. That's what I like to dwell on. That's what I'd like everybody to remember. And I'd like more input from our community members down the road. And if we get that direction, we got a road to follow. And I hope you take that to heart. And next time we have a meeting, bring your neighbors, bring your friends, bring everyone. The more people that talk to us and tell us what they'd like to see, the better, the more it empowers us to do what you want. With that, thank you.
So as Chief said, the newest person to this community, or not community, but to the Community Safety Board. My name is Maurice Barbier, and I'm just looking forward to working with everybody and making the community safe again. Hopefully we can all work together and solve some of these issues that we have on the reserve. So.
Terrence, would you like to lead the questions for us?
Yes, here, back here. Up there. What are the top issues our community is facing that need to be addressed in order to keep us safe? There's a suggestion here online that I think is not bad. Pretty good one, actually. Alec is saying, regarding the subdivisions, is there an interest in creating a group within each subdivision to take care of matters like property maintenance, appointing someone to cut grass in the common areas, create gardens, walkways, apparatuses, etc.? That's like a playground. They can address matters like animal standards for cats and dogs, signage for speed limits where kids are known to be, and maybe other things like plans for parks and fences, in a way to communicate, be involved, and create things we've never had before. So that's kind of like a community manager, a property manager, or something like that in each subdivision. Oh, back here, Lou. Sorry about that. Oh, Stephanie, go ahead. Good enough.
I thought you were going to hold it for me. I was just going to get. Thank you for the prayer today, Dee. What are the top issues our community is facing, and what? And that we need to address in order to keep us safe.
Yes.
Well, for me, one of the things that I think we need to address is speaking out when these things are going on, having our voice, calling the peacekeepers or the police, whatever, we have kids at the playground. There's about 8 of them with pellet guns. Where are their parents? What's going to happen? Something happens. Are the parents going to be responsible? We have things like that. I see a lot of things going on out here where our children are getting away with a lot. Our people that are stuck in addictions are getting away with a lot. When is it going to be enough? There's got to be a plan where if we're helping these people, then let's continue to help them or let's stop. There's repercussions and they need to be followed. Or, we talked about misappropriation of funds earlier that goes on out here. There's lots of things. We're all part of that. It's speaking out when we know something is not being followed to the rules or the regulations that come along with it. And it's being able to in a safe spot or really hearing us. Thank you.
There's another one back here.
Yeah, somewhere down the road, as I recall, I thought that Cowessess was under the drug and alcohol. I thought Cowessess was a dry reserve. Are we not a dry reserve?
I don't think so. Are we? No.
No.
Is there any thought to it, is maybe you're saying?
And secondly, why don't, if we're having so much problems out here with drugs and alcohol, why don't we form a little group that goes out and patrols, like they have in the city in core neighborhood. They have that group that goes out and patrols and makes sure everything's pretty well okay. Why don't we try get something like that going? I think that would be really benefit, the reserve and stop these young children from being out there like Stephanie said, with pellet guns. And I'm sure it would help the reserving. And if that's the way it is, I'm all for it, and I would be more than honored to join that group.
Yeah, just to the one part of that question, I'll answer. You're absolutely right. It's actually a rural program. It's called Citizens on Patrol, COP. Whitewood has it. There's a few other communities that I've worked in. The Carrot River used to have it when I was up at Red Earth. The big thing is, it is just that. It's a group of civilians that they get together in a van, and there's 8 of them. So they're not alone. They're safe, and they don't interact. All they are is observers. So like it's a community observing program, right? So then they just drive around on hours. Like you said, we're short staffed. So they are completely separate from the police. This is where a lot of people they don't work for the police. They don't work with the police. They work for the community. So they drive around in a van, and anything they see, if they see something suspicious or a crime happening, they phone the police. They don't confront those people. They don't anything like that. They are observed. So that's I stress that part, that they don't do anything confrontational. But that's great for us, because just by driving around at 3 a.m, they see a lot of stuff that we're limited. Like you said, there's only so many of us, and if we're tied up with something that's going on Ochapowace or something, then we're not on Cowessess.
Right.
So if your COP program is patrolling Cowessess, you and I both know there's only maybe 2 or 3 vehicles driving around on Cowessess at 3 a.m, so you can watch those vehicles.
And the good thing about having a patrol in a small community like Cowessess, everybody knows everybody. So if something goes down and somebody knows that person or that kid or whoever, they could go and like the officer said, go to the peacekeepers or the RCMP and tell them the name. because they know we
Yeah.
know everybody.
So one of the program that's on in Whitewood, they actually, when because they don't go out every night. The group organizes and they go out once a week or once every 2 weeks, but they actually tell us at the detachment, they phone the detachment at 8 PM and they say, hey, we're going to be out from 10 till 3. If we call you, we're out here kind of thing, right? So it's a partnership like that, but we're completely just, I have to stress because I get asked this from a lot, and I helped set up a few COP programs in other communities. I have to stress that we are separate because as much as I can tell you, don't be confrontational. Sometimes people confront because it's their property, and we do not condone or want that at all. But by any means, I can help you get something off the ground with it, give you the information on it. But yeah, it is a great program. But like I said, especially in a community this size, it would probably benefit a lot.
Lucy is up next there.
Thank you. So, I'm familiar with the COPS program because that's what the cottage owners use in the subdivision. The citizens on patrol, and it's usually the retired folks that go out driving around, and they're just eyes in their community, and they have direct contact with RCMP. And I think that would work in our community. However, we have to have we have a series of bylaws. We have a series of regulations that the nation has in place, and like the animal bylaw, and some communities even have a curfew bylaw so that their kids are in the house at night and not wandering around in the middle of the night. And Stephanie hit it right on the head. It's parents' responsibility, and we need to put it back on the parents to start disciplining their children or regulating their children so that they're not running at large and doing whatever they want and vandalizing or just getting into mischief in the middle of the night. But we also need an enforcement process to enforce these bylaws, because we have written bylaws, but who's going to go and tell that person, you're wrong, you're getting a fine, and you have to remit this fine and remit that payment to the local government. And I think that institutional development is what is the next stage here that we have to evolve to, because, and I'm not saying a penal system, I'm just saying a system of accountability so that you can account for your behavior and account for your children's behavior, etc., and make it right, instead of taking up for your kids, and rather than making them deal with the consequences, they'd rather go and pay for something that they stole, and the kid kind of gets away with that behavior. So our parents and our own abilities to enforce these laws and regulations, because that's part of the challenge, is internally as well. Who is the compliance person that goes out there and makes sure people are compliant? Or for that matter, make sure the nation is compliant to their financial bylaw, to their financial regulations, other than themselves regulating themselves. So we have a bigger challenge ahead of us as these laws evolve. We all want these laws, but how are we going to maintain them, sustain them, and enforce them? Thank you.
I'm looking at the Community Safety Committee. Community. I'm looking at the committee members. 4 of these members don't reside on the nation, when this is supposed to be Community Safety Committee. They don't see what goes on. They don't live out here. It's all hearsay, from what I understand. We don't even have a grandmother on there. So, I have an issue with that. I'm disappointed because I believe if the problems are within our community and it's community members that are going to find solutions to fix the problems when these individuals are not on, don't live on the nation. So that's my concern.
Okay, so we can very easily respond to that. That the amount of people that are on the committee are the exact amount of people that applied to be on the committee. So we didn't have, other than Gary, Gary and who else? Gary and Aaron that applied, that lived on the nation. And that's exactly why we're talking about those task forces, because we expect for community safety, the task force will have people from the community that will be working on those action items. So that's, the issue is to have people apply to be on the committees, because there was nobody turned down from that community safety committee. That the amount of people that applied was the exact amount of people that we required for the committee.
I guess we need more interest from the community to take up some of these spots. The one thing though I want to agree with, it is the parents, but it's the families as well, especially with the drug thing. And that's what I noticed is it's the families within the families that are doing that for their own. Like they're working very hard to keep their families out of that type of a lifestyle. And so I think that was the most successful. And it's hard sometimes. It's really hard to have somebody address that. And so I think it's right though. It is the families. The families need that help. There's a question over here, or a remark over here.
I'm just trying to remember the 4 issues that I could think of. I remember Denise mainly covered all of them, is the speeding and the subdivisions. So that makes me like worry about the kids, and whoever else would be walking around the subdivisions. I was wondering if, I'll try to stick to that one. I was wondering if like there'd be funding to put in place like speed bumps or something like that. I don't know how the grader would work around stuff like that, but if there could be like speed bumps put in place, and because I'm pretty sure they're not going to follow the rules of any speed limit signs or restrictions or anything like that. So if there's like speed bumps out there, I think that might slow them down a bit. Like, but yeah, that's one of, I'm wondering if there's something like that that could be put in place.
We had the ones, didn't we? Yep.
Like I drive around in my truck in the subdivision and I don't feel nothing. Like I don't know if there is speed bumps, but I don't feel them in my truck.
Yeah, well, I remember a time where we did have speed bumps on the lower sub here within there. And I don't know why they were ever taken out. I can't answer that problem, but we could definitely, that's a very easy,
That's what
that's a very easy problem or thing to install again, speed bumps. And
Yeah.
there I go again with the community input. Appreciate that direction, that question, the request, and I'm sure we could act on it. And as for the community, community members on the committee, we called out, there was a call out for committee members and we struggled to fill the committees. If you'll look, there's still vacant spots. So the amount of people that applied was disappointing to me. If people have issues, they should apply to sit on the committees and we'd gladly put you on. I think I'd gladly like to see anybody on the committees that would like to help. It's all about help. Thank you.
Another one would be with the garbage issue in the summertime, bringing in a bunch like wildlife. I don't know, like whatever there is around here, like cougars and bears and lynxes and whatever stuff like that. Like if there's a program that could be, I remember when I was in like high school, I had a summer job and I worked at the water treatment plant. And I remember like 2 times out of the week, we'd go around the community and we'd pick up all the garbage, like out of the bins or whatever, and then we just throw them at the dump or something like that. Like if like a summer job could be put in place for like the summer students to be picking up garbage or even like cutting grass and stuff like that. I'm not sure if that's still going on or not, but the families that have like a lot of, a lot of garbage issues, the bigger families, like I'm wondering if there's anything being put in place to to accommodate them to get rid of their garbage like at least twice a week or something like that.
I'm just gonna jump on that one real quick. I've had a conversation with Ira about this, and we're somewhat looking into getting into a weekly pickup for the subdivisions and or an overflow bin. It's just working with our contracted garbage pickup Loris. They're not out here on a weekly basis, so we have to kind of find a solution, and that might be an overflow bin in these subdivisions. I'm on board with the garbage too because I fill them up like fast. A big one, yes.
Just to let our online people know, it's Councillor Brandon who's responding to this question.
Yes.
Hello there, sorry.
Next is Councillor Joshua to answer this question.
Yes, committee, I just wanted to see, maybe we can do with the speed bumps quarterly, not just once a year type of thing, and when they wear out and they're gone. Maybe we can do it like quarterly, like how we do our reports with the new speed bumps, upper sub and the lower sub. Thank you.
Okay, next question. If there's no more with this. We have another one? Okay, and then we'll be going to the dog question.
Yeah, that's the one actually.
Okay, well, we're going, that's the next question.
I'll wait.
Yes, we do have dogs you can come get.
We did the top issues. Now the next one is. We can't move up.
Oh, sorry, the dog is the next one after this one.
Because there are issues. Okay, we've been talking about drugs quite a bit, and the next comment online was about the families. The families trying to deal with it. This one is, we know there are issues with drugs in our community. How can we address this as your leadership? What supports do you need to address the issue in your house or in your family? That was sort of what the comment was from Denise online. I guess we've been talking about that quite a bit, the drug issue. Anybody else on that? We sort of talked that out a bit. Can move up? Okay, move up. We know that we have an issue regarding dogs and cat control, sorry. Leadership and operations have started to address this through various means. What do you feel we can do for enforcement to truly address this issue? Yes. Okay, wait.
Is that, like Lucy was talking about, we have a lot of bylaws and regs that are there. But they're severely outdated. This is one of the ones that we're talking about with the animal bylaw. I think it was created in 1994, and that was the last time that it was updated. So we are looking at with our governance, with the new director of governance that's coming in order to go through all of those and to prioritize that. But actually, our Director of Justice, Kevin, is right here to talk about a little bit about how justice is taking care of this for us.
So the plan that we've come up with is actually we're going to be rounding up dogs here pretty quick. We're going to be taking in 3 or 4 a day. We have a pen behind our office. It will house those dogs for 48 hours. We'll be publishing pictures of the dogs that we have.
If nobody wants to claim those dogs, then we will deal with them and euthanize them, taking them to the vet to deal with that. Now, if it's somebody who wants to keep that dog and they, it's running wild, part of that condition will be get that dog spayed or neutered. There's a program available through the health department that'll actually pay for that. So it's going to take you an hour to go drop it off and then an hour to go pick it back up at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we have a dog that has a home and won't be reproducing. So far, we've taken care of 10 dogs in the past week. I don't know if anyone's noticed that, but we have taken care of 10 dogs in the past week. So that's what we're doing to deal with the dog issue. But we do need help from the owners of the dogs in keeping them locked up in their yards or fenced up or have a pen. Responsible ownership of animals isn't a nation to deal with it. It should be the person who has that animal, and they should be controlling it. It should be caged. It should be looked after. And if you need to take it for a walk, you take it for a walk. It's just like looking after your kids. It's a member of the family. Treat it like a member of the family and respect the animal. So any questions on that?
I do have 3 pet snakes if anybody wants some.
And then Lucy will be next. Which one? Okay. There should be a housing policy should come into play and limit the animals in the household, ensure that the conditions are safe and not just tied up. Yes, it's a owner's responsibility.
Thank you. So to take it further as a regulatory body, which the government is, I would suggest having a pet registry where everyone registers their pets. You prove that you have rabies shots done for them, and you also get a tag to show who owns that dog, because if the stray dogs are running around and nobody knows who they are, well, no one's gonna own up to it, right? They're gonna just let the stray dog go. So if you want to have a pet, it does link to the housing policy. You have so many pets and you have to register them in a registry system. I run market rental units. I run 300 tenants that live at the lake, and that's what we have to regulate their animals as a pet registry.
To answer that question is, yeah, we have 400 dog tags, animal tags in our office. We also have a registration form. So if somebody's picking up their dog, identifying it as theirs, not only do they have to have it spayed or neutered to get it back home, they also have to have that dog registered. So that has been covered. I just didn't want to get into the whole spiel. So thanks for the question.
Quite a while ago, we had an actual dog person that looked after the dogs, and he was really good at it. I don't know whatever happened to him. His name was Daryl Delorme, and he looked after the dogs. He was really humane. I don't know whatever happened to him, but that would be a good thing to have again.
Yeah, I took a look at that contract, and yeah, he may have been successful at it, but it also cost anywhere from $17,000 to $24,000 in about 90 days. So they burned through that budget pretty quick. So.
And I needed some help this week with my dogs too. Okay, comment online. He says, I got to see first. Okay, there's 2 comments. This one down here. Okay, is it possible to have the owners pay a fee to make owners accountable? Or fine or something, I don't know. And the other one, I guess it has to do with people. This one says there, I hope there's no new members, homeless or couch surfers, and that goes with individual wellness. I guess that's community safety. Okay, good. All right. Go ahead. What did it say? Yes, make to make them pay a fee. Make owners accountable.
The bylaw of 1994 sets out some penalties in there. The problem again that we're having with that is the enforcement of those. Who's going to enforce it? Who's going to collect any fines that would be associated with that? You know, Steph, not you. So that's the issue that would come up with. Is there a way for them to appeal that fine? Is there any way like that? So that's a question beyond my ability to answer. That would have to come from chief and council in order to come up with a way of enforcing that particular collection. Councillor Malcolm.
Hi. I'm very interested in the conversation here. You know, you talk about a fee a couple of years back. Wasn't that long ago? There was a fee for dogs being picked up and put in the fence. I think it was a $20 fee, and nobody seemed to really care about their. Was it only $5? 50. Oh, no wonder that quit. But yeah, there was a fee there, and then you talk about the dog bylaws and people looking after their dogs, you know, and we stand up here as, you know, I might piss everybody off right now, but we stand up here as chief and council and we got 3 of them running around the band office every day. You know, don't feed them. You know, we're trying to start a dog bylaw and you go to the band office and there are 3 of them running at your legs, you know. So where are you going to go with this dog bylaw? Bring them all to the band office and we'll keep them fed and nice and calm. That's the way I see it, you know. I mean, if we're gonna push a bylaw, let's push it for us too, you know. Don't feed them. Hi.
Staff Sergeant Holsom had a comment here, so I'll just give him the mic there.
It's the same issue with bylaws wherever we go, wherever we police. Like we enforce bylaws, we enforce banned bylaws. The issue comes into effect with prosecution. So it's just no different than town of Whitewood, whether it's Chapways, whether it's Cowessess, town of Grenfell. When we lay bylaw tickets, we won't prosecute them. Like when we lay a speeding ticket, we prosecute those ourselves. When we lay an assault charge on somebody, they have Crown prosecutors in Yorkton that come and prosecute those. So with bylaw tickets, there's nothing in place to prosecute them. So some communities they'll try to make a point of it. So especially with overweight trucks and stuff where they actually create a lot of damage and wreck roads and it's worth to prosecute that. So it's tough to pay because say chief and council decide to prosecute a dog bylaw ticket for a $50 bylaw ticket. It's going to cost them a couple $1,000s to pay a lawyer to come and prosecute it in court. So it just doesn't make financial sense to prosecute that simple bylaw ticket, right? So that's where lays the problem.
I know somebody mentioned about our dog guy a few years back and what happened to him and why is he not here? The first one was because he took his job too serious. He chased one dog right through somebody's house and put it to sleep. That was a few years ago, but you remember that? Somebody remember that? Yeah. And then the second one was our other man there was just getting out of hand by chasing the checks every weekend, you know, and ended up costing us way too much just to keep him employed. But that was a good joke, you know. You don't chase a dog through your house with a gun. That's what happened there.
Just also, we are looking at the other policies that work in conjunction with, like, for example, the dog bylaw, because in the housing policy, it is 2 animals or 2 dogs per house. And so we're looking at, once again, ensuring that all of that is up to date and then that enforcement aspect to it. But at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of each of us as stewards of this land. Because if we go back to the Mio Pamatsuin, it's about our commitment not only to as the two-leggeds that to look after the land, but it's to look after the four-leggeds, the ones that swim, the ones that fly as well. And so those four-leggeds are very special to the creators, to our creator as well. And so by utilizing animal control through spaying, neutering, as well as ensuring that you're following the policies and you're only having as many animals as you could properly keep, that's also what you're doing in order to promote that Mio Pamatsuin in our community.
I guess I was going to make a comment. We have a constitution, and I think the second or third clause, and there is everything on Cowessess is a sentient being. And a sentient being is everybody has a right to live, and I don't know. I guess that applies to res dogs, but you got to we got to be looking after our dogs, I guess, a little bit better. And I'm the worst one, to tell you the truth. I feel terrible about it. Okay, what else? Okay, Alex got one here. I don't know what to talk about, but maybe you do. He says, has Cowessess considered enforcing the 2022 SASC Bill 126, where the provincial court recognizes fines issued by First Nations? It can be used for any bylaws the First Nation creates if they get breached. It's a new piece of legislation that enforces payments through the provincial court system that the First Nation can issue. I didn't know that. That's what he says anyway, Alex. Okay. Well, we'll check it out. We don't know what that is. Yeah, we'll check it out, I guess. None of us know anything about it. Anything else about dogs? Okay, cats now.
I think we're focusing on the species that's causing the most issues right now. When it comes to cats, I guess you're not listening, but okay, Kelly.
We spay and neuter cats also through that program.
There you go. They spay and neuter cats through the health program as well. So if you need your animal spayed or neutered, go see Joanne. And I said, if you were listening when you asked the question, I was trying to answer it. You just ignored me and continued to talk. But anyway, we're going to look after the bigger animals first before. I don't know of too many cats attack kids in the lower sub or the upper sub. So, and the thing is, we'll deal with those in due time. Unfortunately, we got to deal with the dogs first. I think that's the most important thing at this point. So I got 2 cats at home. They spray outside. Okay. Well, I think yeah, it'll probably be the same thing with the other ones. But the thing is, they're unwanted cats. Then I guess we'll have to deal with them again and euthanize them if they're causing an issue. So unfortunately, there's going to be a whole lot of euthanation going on, and it's not going to be cheap. So I've requested $30,000 to deal with that issue with the euthanization of the animals. So we'll see how that goes in the next budget talks. Hey, I won't go there. Okay, so our plan in place for bears is already here. We have the trap that we've used the last 3-4 years. We've actually perfected the recipe to catch the bears. So basically, the bear trap is owned by CERM. So they deal with it. Any animals that do get trapped in there, they either take back to Turtle Mountain or they take them to Tantalon and release them there. So we do have the trap. It's ready to roll. And like I said, we have the recipe to get them into the trap now. It took us a while to figure out what variation of products we needed to put in there to get them attracted. So I think the quickest bear we caught last year was 30 or 40 minutes. So it was pretty quick for a problem bear down here in the lower sub. So so that recipe's working. So we're hoping it's going to work this year again. Oh yeah, they've been in people's porches and they weren't even aware that they were there. So when we get those calls, the trap gets moved from wherever it is and that takes priority. All you got to do is give us a call and we'll set that trap up. Maybe you're making your homemade barbecue sauce too good. I don't know. They seem to like sweets and they love watermelon. So
Probably goes without saying though, if you have a bear on your front step, like call 911 and we'll come and make sure that everyone's safe and first before we worry about trapping anything.
and then the other thing is I have a pal course coming up for all the peacekeepers. I recently purchased a shotgun. We're using rubber rounds as well as sock rounds. The bears are not scared of the bear bangers anymore. It's like candy to them. They just turn around and look at you. So next time they hear a bang and it's a rubber bullet going off their butt, they'll move and get moving. So that is coming up on Sunday. So that we're getting that training. So.
Dogs, cats, and bears. Anything else? Animals? Interpersonal violence is an issue in every community, including ours.
And without comments,
yep, we got, please use the microphone. The next question, interpersonal violence is an issue in every community, including ours. How can we provide better support for our families as they and we address this issue together? The chief here.
When we use the term interpersonal violence, that means all types of violence, of course, physical violence, and that would be if there's elder abuse and the physical violence that's happening within the home, but it's also hello. Okay. And it's also all the violences. It's about the lateral violence. It's about financial abuse. It's about actual physical hitting. It's about threats and intimidation. That's what interpersonal violence is. And so we know that this is an issue, and we also know that it's a silent issue. We also know that this is not a First Nations issue, as Saskatchewan actually has the most deaths of domestic violence that there are in the country. So this is very much a hidden issue. And we're looking at, especially as we're moving in towards potentially and most likely having a personal payout, is how to prevent abuse for our most vulnerable, especially when there's money involved. And how do we help protect, and how do we help address it before it happens? And also, how can we provide that safety for people to reach out when that's occurring in their home? Because we have to have those healthy and safe home fires before we can have a healthy and safe community.
Sure, anybody wants to talk about it, but it's one of the issues, like when we get into the homes and there's a lot of stress and it's overcrowding. And that's part of a big issue, is overcrowding in the homes, and gets close quarter living. And we have two questions in the back, or two comments in the back. Lucy Pelche first, and then Stephanie.
It's about a wellness strategy in the community. And at one time we had we did some frontline worker training and did some family systems training and started building our frontline workers so that they had the strength and the endurance to help the community members. Because the trauma we talk about, we tend to react in lateral violence or in different forms of violent behavior towards each other, sometimes to the ones you love the most. And I think Facebook is the worst tool of all for lateral violence and spreading rumors and gossip and being able to hold our tongue and remember that you own that unspoken word. And once you speak it, it's yours. And you know, we have to have systems where we can have the ability to say we're sorry or to apologize or have a way of showing that in the community. Historically, we had those ways of disciplining our people, and they're going through those going through their stages of reflecting on what they did and why they did that, and then coming back and having remorse and changing their behaviors. So family system starts at home. It also starts in the workplace, and it starts at the top. It starts with leadership as well. Thank you.
To further go on Lucy's comments, that it does start at home. You know, we are our own best policemen. You know, if you know you're doing something wrong, you know you're not following the policy properly, or you're trying to interpret it to your best interest that's going to serve you, stop yourselves. We all know this. You know, we can keep on telling each other what we want to do. You know, we know who's been banned out here. We're still allowing them out here. You know, what are we really going to do? It starts with the individual. We don't want it. We don't want it. We're going to stand up and we're going to say no. We need to be able to speak out and be really heard, not just the same ones all the time. Thank you.
Good one, Stephanie. Anybody else here?
I know that in the past, like alcohol was, there was a time, I think when Last Oak opened up, where there was supposed to be no alcohol. And now that marijuana is legalized, at what, I'm not sure how to word it. There's the real hardcore drugs. And I personally know in every third or fourth house in our community is users or sellers. I went through all the houses on the reserve, and I counted how many of us parents, grandparents had adult children living in our homes, and I counted 53 homes. That's a lot of young people that have no home or no place to go. I'm not sure how, like I think about it, like what can I do to encourage, you know, I talk to my son. However, it's up to the individual as to when they want to stop using, when they want to quit. I don't know what more we can do. I think maybe it's time we start targeting the users. We're always focusing on the sellers. If we start working with the users, there wouldn't be any sellers. It's like I'm at my wit's end, you know, I talk to my son, and it's really frustrating. It's angering. And I reside in my parents' home, and I want to stay there. I tell my son, you know, I'm ready to put myself in the old folks' home so that I wouldn't have to put up with his BS of traffic coming and going all hours of the night. And maybe it takes somebody else to come and talk to him because he's not hearing it from me, but maybe he'll listen to somebody else. Like I said, I know for sure in every third or fourth house, there's users or there's sellers. So we got a lot of work ahead of us. Thank you.
Thanks. Some mothers. Anybody else?
Thank you, Rhonda. I'd like to just talk to you, Rhonda. Rest assured, we hear you. I hear you. And I would really like to help you address the problem. Not your problem, but it's a problem for our whole complete First Nation out here. The problem stems with these drugs being transported onto our First Nation because there's a ready market for it. How do we handle that problem? It's community, you know. I talked about in council before that we should bring in someone like the Bear Clan, I think, in Winnipeg. I heard about their work, and they will come onto our First Nation and patrol. We talked about cops, citizens on patrol, same thing, you know. I believe if we get direction from the community members that this is what they want, believe we should act on it. And put more people out there, more eyes out there. Cut off the seller's traffic to the house, and eventually they'll have to move. I don't think we could stop them, but they'll move to a different place. But I really feel sorry for the people that are our elders, our Kokums that are dealing with this problem that they can't control. And I really believe we as leaders have to hear what you're saying and do something about it. We have to do something about it. Hearing what you say is not good enough for me right now. And keep the pressure on the chief and council to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's a hard issue to address, and I talked with Josh about it too, because, you know, we're getting a lot of money in this community from many, many different sources, and everybody's going to have their own cash. And I talked with the grade 12s and the high schools quite a bit to you know, get people to think about that day, what's going to happen. And you think about what one payout is going to be for one person. And I said, times that by how many kids you have in this classroom. At the time, I think there was about 20. So you can imagine how much money is going to be in that classroom on that day. And I know from, like, I travel all over and I've been to many, many communities, and you meet many people. And one of the things when they have like a payday in a mining town, like wherever it would be, Estevan or someplace, Yorkton, when they have a payday in that community, there's people that come into that community just to sit in the bar and sell the drug to those payday people. And you know, when I was going in the north to travel in the north, for somebody, if they were to get together like $5,000, and they bought $5,000 worth of grant, whatever the hell it was, they go to that community, they can walk out of there in 2 days with $20K. You know, and that's how much money that can be made in a small community that has money. And so that's a big thing. And that's one of my biggest fears. Even if our children aren't affected by that, we are all affected by that. It creates a really dangerous community to live in. And so that's one of my concerns. I know that's, you know, we just got to prepare for it somehow, but that's my biggest concern is the kids that are going to have that money and they have no experience dealing with that amount of money. None of us do, really. So that's my concern. Anybody else?
There's one more. There's one more question. Oh.
I'll read the question. Next question. There are times when our members don't have a place to stay due to mental health and addictions issues they face. This sometimes creates a safety issue within our community. How do we balance our members who refuse to help with overall community safety? Maybe you can flesh out that question for us.
Okay, so we know that there are people that they face severe mental health and addictions issues, and they don't have a place to stay, even to couch surf, because they have utilized every resource that they've had in our nation, in our community. And they refuse the help. There's help that has been offered to them, and they just refuse the help. And so one of the issues we faced a few times already, and as we prepare for the 1907 and other amounts of monies that are coming in, we're looking at housing and maybe small houses and different types of other strategies within that. But for right now, and especially now that summer's coming, we know that there are people that don't have a place to go, and our peacekeepers are put in a very tough position because they're either in psychosis or they're extremely high. And we don't want to criminalize them, because there's reasons why they're acting in the way that they are, which is due to the mental health and addictions. And when we call the police and when we do other aspects, because it's not, we don't have the capabilities right now in order to address these issues. It's very hard, especially for our peacekeepers, or when we as council get the call, how do we work towards this? We try with the complex case management with our different areas, but if they don't want help that's been given to them, we're still in that same position where they're at the mall or they're going and they're without, and I say this in as much of a respectful way as I can, but they go to other people's houses, they go to our seniors' houses, they go to other places where they cause a potential hazard and a safety risk. So we just wanted to put that question out there, because for us, we're stumped. We're very much stumped on how to work within this where they're at without criminalizing them. So we don't expect the big answer tonight, but for our community to know this is very much on our radar and what we're trying to look at in addressing this as a committee or a community, pardon me.
Any questions? Maybe I have a comment. There was a concern that I had when we have young kids in the community that I don't know what to say, like how to say it, like they're thrown away kids. And they kind of like nobody to offer them any guidance and stuff. And at one time we could have helped them maybe with mental health issues, when they're in the schools and stuff. But we could have tried, I suppose. But all I'm saying is sometimes we're in such a helpless situation, and I was during COVID or when I was driving to town this one time, I gave this one fellow a ride, and somebody said, he went to town, he went to go get drugs, and then when he came back, he nodded out in somebody's car, and they had to call an ambulance or something. So that's when they say, like, I'd like to help those people if they're hitchhiking to town, but those types of things they're not very safe for me, especially elderly people or people who don't know them. Eh? So they're all right. And it's unfortunate, like, I don't know what to do about it. Like what you could do about it. Like sometimes they just don't have anybody. And you're right. They're criminalizing them simply because they don't have anybody to take care of them. The other thing I wanted to bring up is sometimes we have people that come home and it's their own choice, I guess. And they don't really, for whatever reason, they go live under the bridge. And we've had a number of people like that. And I don't know why they do that, but I guess that's kind of hard to deal with stuff like that. Eh? And I see that too. And I don't know how to deal with it. I know peacekeepers do a lot of stuff with the people. And I appreciate them doing that. But a lot of us are the lost or don't know how to help. That's way beyond us, way beyond us. Do you have any comments on that? No, that's what I'm saying. He wanted to stay there. Your question, any general issues on that?
Well, everything that we deal with and the traumatic thing is a mental health for my guys, and yeah, it's pretty tough. But yeah, this issue is not just an issue out here, it's also an issue in the city. When it comes to the use of crystal meth, basically what it is, your first use is already changing the chemical balance in your brain. So with that comes psychosis. When we deal with them, very unstable. They don't know where they are. You don't know what they're capable of. Usually a violent outbreak. I think one of my guys was assaulted, knife pulled on him. He had to protect himself the best he could. In fact, we had to handcuff this individual and wait for the RCMP to come. So it's something we deal with on a regular basis, unfortunately. And I know once they get taken or transported to the hospital under the Mental Health Act, as soon as they come back positive for any type of drugs, they're ex-nayed and they're released. And then we got to deal with them back in the community the next day. So I don't know what the answer is to help somebody who refuses to help. There's not a whole lot that we can do in order to force somebody to get help. Just like everybody in this room who has a family member who's been addicted, they don't get help unless they want it. Unfortunately, we got to deal with it on a regular basis. And I don't know what the answer is to get people the help that they need when they need the help to protect themselves and their own sanity, and they just refuse. The one case is pretty tough. We had 3 or 4 different entities meeting on a regular basis for this individual, and he's still refusing help. So right now, it's in Red Bear's court here. Hopefully that they can see that he's been sober for a few months. Hopefully that we can get the help that he needs. Unfortunately, if he says no again, I don't know where we turn. I'm at a loss when it comes to that. How do you force somebody who says he likes the drug and he likes to get high? How do you deal with that? I have no idea. So if anybody has any ideas, I'd love to hear about them. And yeah.
Thank you. It's a really hard question to answer. Carson here.
I just have a comment about this with the mental health. I'm just trying to figure out how to put it all together, but with the mental health, it just seems like there's just a lack of support, and it kind of just is what it is, like we all have our own lives and we're all busy, and like we said, we don't have the answers to any of this. But like, I think maybe we could start like with the school and trying to teach the kids about mental health and healthy ways to live their lives, and just just to live a little better lives, or be more aware of their actions that or paths they could go down, or just have like a mentorship kind of come down and just like let them know, like, where even if I don't know, like, I don't know if that's too extreme or whatever, but like, even if it was like an addict or something like that, or a mental health person, where they kind of just express their lives or talk about their lives, and just like let them know where they kind of went wrong or what they wish they could have done better. And with the addictions too, I always believe like you can't help someone that doesn't really want any help. Like that's just the way it is. Like if you don't want help, then you can't help someone like that. And like, yeah, I just feel like it should start with the school or whatever. Like if we don't have the answers for it, maybe we could support the youth and the younger generation so they could figure out the answer for us, or later on. So like, yeah, that's all I could basically kind of think about with that one. It should start with the school, maybe. Maybe they could like there could be like a survey on what they figure they might want to do. I don't know if they'll even be into that, but like just like a survey on what they figure they're interested in, or just like, yeah, just some guidance on how to properly like live their lives or whatever like that. And I do like that they do have like a summer job program. I always felt like that was a good one for the youth too, just to keep them busy and just to give them that work sense or that job, yeah, work ethics to prepare them for later on in life and just life skills, you know, just trying to teach them a few things on life skills and yeah, just how it is outside of the reservation even. Just little things like that. That's all I could really think of right now.
Good. Josh?
Yes, this is what Cashin was saying. This is what we're trying to convey in our council. We want to bring in character development and critical thinking in our schooling, especially with our young ones, so they can have an understanding with cognitive thinking when they're growing up, so they can make different decisions in their lives. You know, so with that, that's with figuring out their identity, figuring out who they are, their maternal, internal, family relationships, and yeah, just trying to have an understanding of who they are so they understand where they're going. Chief Denton George always said, you got to go know where you're going before you got to go know, you got to know who you are before you know where you're going. And he's right about that. It took me a long time to figure that out. You know, it took me about 20 years to figure it out. But once I did, I realized it. And I think that's what we need to convey in our schools is character development and critical thinking starting from our preschoolers and growing up. Thank you. Bye.
Good. Well, I think we answered the questions at the best you could. Like, and I think we're trying, and I sure appreciate the peacekeepers for the efforts that they make for keeping our community safe.